Finally, Yanni has returned to the Black Twitch League. What is going on, everybody? I have been away for a very, very long time, but heck, this ain't about me. This is about the teams that we have here for Week 7, the last week of the regular season. We are seeing Predictive Gaming versus the WCU Rams. RareAdam, it has been a long time, my friend. I am so happy that I finally get to share a couple of microphones with you.
It's going to be a fun series, to say the least, here. Predictive Gaming, as well as WCU Rams, both of them just looking to find their footing before we get into playoffs next weekend.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting season so far for both of these teams. Predictive Gaming still looking for their first win. Meanwhile, the Rams, they're not doing too much better. So you know a little bit more about how the season's gone than I have. Is this just bad luck? Is this just the teams getting outmatched, or what?
I think Predictive Gaming specifically have had a little bit of a rough go of things. They had a really rough start to the season, specifically having to face up against some of the top teams like Barbara's Fan Club, MG Element, and I don't think they've been able to find their footing since then. They've had a couple of roster swaps as well, but at this point, with everyone just sort of looking poised to take that next step into playoffs, we just want to see the best performances that these teams can offer while they prepare for the gauntlet. As these two teams, the 7 and 8 seed right now, if WCU Rams win, they may be able to move up a little bit. Really depends on results later tonight.
That would absolutely help because, man, running a gauntlet is it's so rough to deal with, man. It's just playing game after game after game can really wear on a team, and then you don't get the preparation beforehand either. It just makes it almost impossible to do, but I commend any team that can.
Yeah, and realistically, the only implications that we can see here is if Ishtar, or if WCU Rams 2-0 this and Ishtar lose 2-0 to DPS, they will swap spots there. If Ishtar are able to take down DPS somehow, they will actually be able to move up a little bit in the gauntlet, up to potentially the 4th seed. So realistically, with the expected results that come through, WCU and Team Ishtar may be swapping spots, but that would be the extent of what happens. But we're getting through bans already.
Yeah, this is pretty important. So I think that this is it's so hard to say, but like if you're Team Ishtar, you really want to get that extra win. And as you've said, we are already through the picks and bans. Lulu, Victor, Jinjiao gone, Ash, Shaco, and Zach gone. Predictive Gaming, they've gone with Graves, Morgana, Samira. So some pretty solid targets for these Black Shields. On the other side, the Rams, Veigar, Jinx. This is looking like a pretty big meta comp right here.
Yeah, and of course, Please Don't Run It, of note, did step in for a game of casting, I believe, on Wednesday when we had a reschedule come through. And he said that Veigar is one of the strongest champions right now, thinks he can blind pick it no matter what. So, just putting the money where the mouth is as well by picking that one up. The Soraka, though, going to be that last pick of the first round.
I suppose your Morgana shield doesn't matter that much when Veigar is hitting you for 800 damage on an ultimate. So I somewhat agree with Please Don't Run It. A lot of the champions that punish Veigar are just not in the meta right now. I mean, unless you're running against somebody who's going to pick up a Fizz, you're not really worried too much, right?
Yeah, and realistically, if you're picking those assassins in the mid lane, you may be punished for it as well. Realistically, it's interesting to see that the Graves was so highly prioritized here for Mute. They have been sort of the shining light for Predictive Gaming here, been sort of the one person to kind of rise above the rest, try and get those early game leads. It's really just about Predictive Gaming getting their footing and being able to transition that into some game wins. And realistically, if they're going to beat anyone, it will be the side of WCU Rams, who've also had a little bit of a rocky season.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of these games of the teams that are, lower in the league, is that it's really anybody's game. And this is going to be an incredibly close matchup when you take a look at a win-loss for an entire season. There's not too many times where you'll see close matchups realistically until you get toward the end of the playoffs. Speaking of things that were toward the end of the ban phase, the Rams have gotten rid of Ornn and Wukong, so a lot of team fight disruptors there. They don't want to deal with any of that garbage. Meanwhile, on the other side, Predictive Gaming with Camille and Hecarim, so taking more, team fight disruption off of the map, and a strong jungler also out of the pool. The Rams, they've elected to pick a Shen here, so this looks like a very protective comp for this Jinx.
Yeah, it's very much about playing around Ahada here on the Jinx. They want to try and make sure that the Jinx is the hyper carry, and Veigar in a lot of ways can sort of get the same benefit out of these heals and shields that Soraka and Shen are able to provide. But interesting hover here with the Rel. This would mean that the Morgana potentially goes mid lane as an answer to the Veigar, and yeah, that's locked in. So gonna be a pretty heavy crowd control combo coming through with the Rel. The Samir is able to extend that. Morgana as well gonna be able to lock people down. So regardless of how many heals and shields you have, this crowd control is still going to exist against this Jinx and Veigar. They've got to be incredibly careful about how they're positioning, and Predictive Gaming just going for the jugular here with the Kayle pickup. Really curious to see how this matches up. Into the Shen specifically, you do need to get off of the ground a little bit, but realistically, you'll have a lot of free time if Shen is ulting around the map.
It seems like a pretty lean team composition they have going on, but I like it a lot. You have the Rel go in and start, making things happen with her Magnet Storm, and then you can have a Samira follow up, and all of a sudden you can't interrupt her. If you Black Shield her, she's not going to be able to get interrupted. And then you've got the late game hyper carry in the form of the Kayle, along with the strong early game Graves. The only lane you really can't gank as Graves is this Kayle, which you're probably okay with. And the Rams, they're going to follow up with a pretty stock jungle pick. It's the Jarvan. But you know what? I like this a whole lot. I got to be honest with you. This WCU Rams composition looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, interesting to see that they prioritized the Shen getting picked up earlier instead of just picking up the Jarvan on R4. That's the main concern that I have here, is that you could have potentially saved your top laner to have a little bit more of a favorable matchup. Shen does well into Kayle. I'm not going to deny that in any sense of it, but it can be a little bit challenging to keep up with the pace of what Kayle will be doing in the later stages of this game as the Shen. Realistically, Shen's going to have to try and bully down this Kayle pre-6, get some jungle attention, and honestly, the Jarvan's probably one of the picks that you would want to have for early ganks, but you could have picked the Jarvan at R4 and potentially had a more aggressive top laner to answer the Kayle.
The good news is, even if this game happens to go very late, it's going to be a Kayle versus a Jinx in terms of like super late game scaling, which would favor the Kayle in most cases, but I think the Rams have plenty of CC to be able to shut down this Kayle out of the top lane. And the Soraka silences are going to be instrumental into getting nice chain CCs off before Kayle can really react.
I think that realistically, this Kayle is going to be the X factor of this game. It's
yeah.
sort of it gets so much protection in this comp as well, because you've got this Black Shield where she's just able to free hit for such a long time. You have the double Angel comp sort of from Predictive Gaming here, where this Kayle has the agency to be sort of the perfect saving grace here. Actually, there's a Morgana currently picked up for the jungle here. We'll see if that actually gets swapped, because Morgana jungle would be a little bit more interesting to take a look.
I mean, it's doable, right?
Yes.
It was a thing. It was a thing. Sometime last season.
Yeah.
They've certainly nerfed it because it was running League for quite some time, but they nerfed it enough to where it wasn't super strong, but it wasn't like an unplayable pick. There are stronger picks. You could go with something stock, gank in a can like Volibear, or you could play something like Morgana. And let me tell you, sometimes playing gank in a can Volibear ain't all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes you want to just be throwing bindings over walls through the jungle.
And I think the interesting part about the Morgana jungle here isn't so much so how it does into Jarvan, which is going to be a little bit more of a tough matchup. It's more so how Graves is going to do into Veigar. Graves is going to be able to do a lot of damage in that early game. Please don't think he's going to have to play on the back foot a little bit, but realistically, what does Graves do once the baby cage comes down? There's no real way to get around it or get out of it. You're just sort of stuck in the cage, where Veigar can deal all of that damage, where you've got the Jarvan to come in and gank this Graves as well. So I'm curious about the specifics of this lane assignment here, because Morgana would just be able to walk through with the Black Shield and not have to worry about anything, and Graves is able to keep pace with Jarvan. I want to see, maybe they might swap, as actually there we go. I want to see if they swap. I don't think they will, but it's an interesting take on this to put the Morgana in the jungle instead.
I do think it makes the team composition a lot worse. So you never get that point in time where you can really build up a lot of strength on, like, eventually, like, Morgana's going to build up a lot of strength in the mid lane on her Tainted Soil, and then be able to roam around and get some nice ganks off with her binding. Whereas Graves, you don't really have that advantage. You're going to push a lot faster, so you're going to be able to roam a lot sooner, but you're not bringing any CC to your ganks. Now, what this does mean is that Morgana coming around and being able to gank does mean that there will always be CC potential to be able to lock down kills. Like, there was an earlier criticism that we had was that Graves doesn't bring any CC, so it makes top lane ungankable. Now all of a sudden top lane is gankable.
Yeah, top lane is definitely a gankable opportunity there with the Morgana. You can sort of land some, like, on both sides, in fact. You've got crowd control from both of the junglers now, and Kayle, if she takes lethal tempo, can do a decent, healthy amount of damage after level 6 to this Shen. So I'm curious to see if Mute will maybe try and focus down the Shen right around the level 6 mark for both top laners to see if they can potentially find an angle for it. But yeah, Double Angel is going to have to really pop off in this matchup. I mean, you're going to have the crowd control shield and the invulnerability if Samir drops that ultimate. So I think X Factor is definitely the Kayle regardless, but honorable mention to that Morgana. She needs to make sure that she's staying relevant and able to stay alive in a lot of these fights to provide enough peel for effectively the double 80 carry bottom side of the map they've got.
And it is crazy because you touched on it a little bit as well, the invulnerability for the Samira. Maybe the X Factor is not just Kayle. Maybe the mid-game X Factor is going to be the Samira. We'll have to see if this Kayle is going to be able to travel with the team. We're going to have to see what summoners they take. So it should be pretty interesting to see how this game ends up shaking out once we get into it at level 1. That being said, we are currently in the spectator delay, so we will be taking a very short break. And when we return, we'll be back with all the action for Game 1 of Predictive Gaming versus the WCU Rams. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here for the first game of the last week of the Black Twitch League season. It's Yanni, it's RareAdam, we're bringing you the action. Predictive Gaming versus the Rams here for this first game. Adam, we were not expecting the Morgana in the jungle. Interested to see how you think this game plan is going to work out.
Yeah, and honestly, from the draft, I was expecting the Morgana to just go support, but I guess they've got some sort of game plan. But level 1 shenanigans already amiss. You can see Soraka going to be forced to walk away from this one.
Flash! Yes! Flash again! Hit the binding, predict the flash! They predicted the flash! They have caught the Soraka! It is first blood going over to Paufu.
And that's the worst person to get first blood if you're the side of WCU Rams. You did not want to give that over to the Kale. She's going to have a little bit of extra gold and staying power now in that top lane. Although, please don't run it. Doing a great job of preventing these recalls means that they may be able to afford their bot lane a little bit of an advantage, but really scrappy early game already.
Well, listen, I've been away for a little while, and it's nice to see that some things never change.
The
Like
BTL level
literally,
1s.
BTL and level 1s, name a more iconic duo, Adam. A little bit of a poke coming out here, though, onto that rel. And we were talking about it while they were loading in. We feel like this bot lane is probably going to have a bit of a rough time.
It's definitely going to be rough for Killua, Gone 22, and Melon to find their way onto Ahata and Asian Damon here. A lot of it is going to be just because of the zone control that the traps and the silence field are going to be able to provide. So, curious to see if this first kill onto the Soraka means anything. She doesn't have that flash, but neither does Melon. Has the Hex Flash, though, so maybe there's some sort of a sneaky play that they can do. Hex Flash and get the flip onto the Soraka, level 1, level 2, and Samira is able to extend those knock-up durations, so I want to see if they can try and find something aggressive, but already Ahata understands the task, which is shove in this bot lane, get level 2 as early as possible.
Shove and poke, shove and poke. That's the name of the game when you got a Soraka on your team. Because any trading you take back, you don't care. You got a second health bar, buddy.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing that also takes away from the Morgana jungle. It's so hard to set up for those ganks because they're really they're easy to predict. It's almost as if they're predictive, like the name suggests. Exactly. So, like WCU Rams, they're going to be able to just throw down the traps if Rel is trying to engage, or if you see the Morgana walking up, she's going to have to use the Black Shield on herself to walk through the traps if she's not able to line the bind either. But mid lane, oh my goodness.
Lots of poke going back and forth as it seems that Smurf is getting the better of Please Don't Run It here. Can't see how many pots Please Don't Run It has left as I've got the item bug, but that's beside the point. You know how to fix that?
Which one?
The item bug.
Item bug. Press A and then press A again. It turns the teamfight view and then it should be able to.
Oh, he's got no potions left. Pafu has to flash away. The flag and drag from Dissipate will burn the Kale flash, so gotta play a little bit safer after getting that early lead. You don't want to give it away.
And even despite the first blood, it doesn't really make you tankier in any way. So, you know, you're just going to be sort of coping in this lane as best possible. But interestingly enough, Mute actually going to get the double crab here. Jarvan tried to find themselves a nice gank on that top side, but generally has been clearing a lot slower than we would expect a Jarvan to clear. Wasn't able to get that top scuttle crab, and now going to be a little bit behind Mute, who may be able to actually find a gank on this bottom side of the map, despite, you know, starting on that bottom side. Curious to see what Mute does here with themselves, because there is still the possibility of killing the Soraka with no flash, and with level 3 just coming through, there's still a lot of all-in potential. But once you get to level 4, level 5, that's where it gets more difficult to Mute to find the ganks.
And you know what? I gotta give a lot of credit to Mute. I was not expecting them to clear as fast as they have so far. And, you know, the death of Morgana Jungle has been greatly exaggerated, apparently, and it is shining through here by Mute. We'll have to see if they make anything happen, because so far Dissipate has done a little bit more on the map, as we see Dissipate here in the mid lane trying to make something happen. We'll be able to knock up the Graves. Lots of damage coming out, but Graves is just dashing forward. He does not care. He's got a red buff on him, though, and he will have to flash away. Dissipate in hot pursuit and will be able to find the kill onto the Graves. And Mute was just not in position to help out. A binding just goes wide.
Yeah, unfortunately not able to get the return kill or anything else in return. Dissipate really taking advantage of the power of Conqueror Jarvan. We've seen in LEC specifically a lot of first strike Jarvan. It's more so for that burst potential to get as much gold as you can in every situation, but Conqueror is still very strong. Oh, topside though, Kingfisher.
Lots of damage going on and lots of action here. It's a double knockup, and all of a sudden, Dissipate's in trouble and is done. Killua living up to his name, trying to Killua some more. Sights set on that Soraka. Mute will get credit for that kill. Please don't run it, is running it, and it's a complete team fight wipe here. It's a double kill out of nowhere. I certainly wasn't expecting that. Predictive Gaming gets 4 kills.
Yeah, massive team fight there for themselves. You know, Samira is able to get a couple of resets on those dashes and really interesting flash over the wall. I think they maybe could have stuck in that fight, and I was worried because of that flash, but it ends up working out for themselves. They're going to get first dragon, and Predictive Gaming, this has been sort of their game plan throughout the season. Get themselves an early game lead and see what happens from there. But this time it just feels like it's sticking a little bit more, and they still have they now have the flash off of Dissipate and Please Don't Run It to potentially punish as well. So really curious to see how the next 10 minutes or so work out, because that's usually where the wheels fall off the bus a little bit for Predictive Gaming. I want to see them continue to push forward their lead, and you know, Graves being 2-1-1 here is a really good place to start.
And this is important. Momentum is so important in life, in sports, in esports, in League of Legends, whatever game you play. Momentum is the most important thing, and with a hot game like this team, could be feeling themselves by the end of this. It's important that they don't lose sight of what they need to do.
And Dissipate gonna be trying to keep making things happen on this Jarvan. I think it's super important to keep in mind that Jarvan falls off like a truck once you get to the later stages. Oh my goodness, Mute is so fast.
Please Don't Run It is a little bit faster though with the dancing shoes. We'll be able to dodge the binding and manage to survive. Dissipate was in the area, but just seems like they're a step behind Mute currently, and it's got to be a weird feeling if you're a Jarvan jungle and you're kind of just getting out jungle by a Morgana here.
And the Morgana, I want to keep in mind that despite it getting nerfed, it still has a really quick clear. And you still have that healing aspect to it. You're still super healthy. Your Tormented Soil is just so good at clearing out the jungle camps, the AoE one specifically. Like Raptors and Wolves stand no chance. I know it's called something else now, but I'm still calling it Tormented Soil. This is my official caster protest, because they should never have changed it. But
I agree.
Realistically, this is Morgana's strength. She's good at clearing camps quickly. She's going to provide you some AP threat from the jungle, and actually thinking about the team comp now, Morgana through the jungle, it means that everyone has to be mindful and potentially build Merc Treads because of that gank potential, because she's going to be roaming around the map so much. Oh my goodness.
It's a pretty sweet move by Melon, and now Melon's in a little bit of trouble. Dissipate getting low, and now here comes a Samira trying to make things happen. We'll be able to find one kill. We'll be able to dash back. Not going to be able to get any kills off the Inferno trigger, and Mute has no mana left. Kingfisher is here waiting for the Dark Shield, the Black Shield, I should say, to expire. And now here comes Smurf. Maybe he wants to find a kill on the Asian Demon if they can get any closer. Does not have the collateral damage available to them, so they will have to walk it out. And the Rams will get 2 back there.
Really well played for them to get a little bit back, and some interesting lane assignments now coming through. Please Don't Run It moves up to that top side of the map to keep that keep Pafu under control, which is really important. You want to prevent this Kayle from getting any additional gold that they may be able to accrue, and keeping that tower, only getting 1 tower plate off of that ult out is really big, and Kingfisher will just have to survive mid lane for a little bit. Realistically, this Shen is just going to be a sort of just occupying space as opposed to looking for any kills at this point, especially with the more defensive option in the itemization thus far.
Yeah, he's just there strictly to protect this Jinx, to be honest with you, and maybe come in and make a cheeky gank along with Dissipate. So not expecting too much here, but they do need to have an answer for this Kale at some point. Obviously, it's going to be quite a while before she's online, but already with a small CS lead. And you know what? Taking a Rift Herald is one of the better ways of ensuring that you can try to find a way back in. That being said, we could see an engagement here as Kingfisher is about half HP, has been CC locked for quite some time, and is just dead. Mute picking up the kill, and this composition out of Predictive Gaming has what? It's got sneaky damage right now.
Yeah, it's got a lot of damage because of the burn that can come through from Morgana. She's building towards the Leandries as well, so going to be even more damage over time to deal with. And for the time being, you know, Kilowoggon on this bottom side of the map has the advantage because they've got their Vampiric Scepter as well as the Executioner. So Asian Damon's not going to have as much of an oomph on their heels as they did earlier in this lane even. Realistically, Killua can just kind of sit on this bottom side, get some levels into their pocket, and even though Jinx is inevitable and she's in a pretty strong spot considering what her role is in this game, you still have to be concerned about Samira because all it takes is one big team fight, one, you know, 3-man stun, 2-man stun even coming through from Mute, and that will mean that the fight just goes all in favor of the Samira with the Inferno trigger.
Yeah, if you lose sight of her, it will be problematic. Like we were just talking about with the heel cut that is on the Samira, you know, it helps out a little bit, but in the end, it does put you further behind. You're not really accelerating your build. You're not getting closer to that shield bow, and when, you know, while you're even in kills and you're up in assists, being down in CS does mean that the gold's probably a little even down there. It could be slightly tilted toward the Samira, which means that you're not really getting as much of an advantage. That being said, when you got Melon on your team making plays like that, that's all the advantage you need. Followed up with a Morgana ultimate, Ahata trying to survive, Kilowoggon getting credit for that one, and we'll pick that one up too. It's a double kill for the Samira, and everybody gets out A-OK.
And this is the predictive gaming that we wanted to see for 6 weeks out of the season. They're coming alive in week 7, and honestly, what better time to do it than now when you want to make a good show before playoffs? And honestly, I've been really impressed with what I've seen thus far from this team. They've looked super cohesive, and this early game lead is starting to move into this mid game now, and I'm curious to see how this Samira, how this Morgana are going to continue to link up for plays like that.
Converting leads is the mark of a good team, and it is something that is so difficult to do. The task will be on Predictive to make that happen, and for the Rams, being down with a team composition like the one that you have, staring down a potential late game Kale, this does mean that it's going to be really hard for this Jinx to be able to get into the game. So they're going to try to make it hard for this Veigar to do anything. 0-1-1 is going to try to turn around and find a kill on a Smurf, but expertly played by Smurf. A little bit of help from his buddy Mute, and that is a dead Yordle.
Yeah, really well played. The Merc Treads actually come through as sort of the saving grace there from Smurf there. Is able to, you know, tank up a lot more damage than I think Please Don't Run It was expecting, and despite the Everfrost being complete, there's no Magic Pen complete. You don't have the Magic Pen boots. You know, you only have your tier 1, you just have your tier, actually, as any sort of mana as well, so difficult for Please Don't Run It to sort of convert on that play. Tried to turn it around and gave a valiant effort, but still, all of these fights are still just kiltering in favor of Predictive Gaming, and they might be poised for their first game win of the season if they keep this performance up.
Well, they do have a lot of pressure. Mute still has access to the Rift Herald, so that's more gold that can go anywhere on the map. Hanging around the bot side, you could be able to take down that top lane turret if you wanted to. I don't know if Morgana's going to be able to get up there in time, so it looks like it'll probably just go down in the mid lane. I really hope Mute remembers that they have it. I saw somebody forget the other day, and I was very upset. Alright, there we go, excellent. Everything's fine.
Oh.
Okay, nice little double stun here. Mute going to take a turret shot, and the Rift Herald is on the scene. They're not going to be able to get that other turret plating, but they will be able to find one anyway. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Killua is in a whole lot of trouble. Will heal up. No knockup from Dissipate. However, Super Mega Death Rocket will be able to find a kill. Melon doing what they could, but their AD carry will fall.
And I think a lot of the power that's going to come from the side of WCU Rams here is going to be through Ahata on this bottom side of the map. Really needs to be that sort of shining light on this Jinx. And, it's been a rough early game for the Veigar thus far. 0-3-1. The Shen hasn't really been able to exist this game, already down 40 CS in a matchup that at least pre-6 should be going in favor of Kingfisher just a little bit more. But, give as much gold as possible to this Jinx and you'll be feeling good. Teleport, though, that's a very defensive play.
Yeah, you know what? You don't want to lose your Jinx here. You want to have your Jinx get a pretty solid back. You got the objective bounties, and I think the defensive teleport here is okay when you're this far behind. You don't want to fall further and further behind at this point in the game, because if you do, it's going to be so much harder to come back.
Yeah, the only real critique that I have about that teleport is, it's please don't run it using that teleport. Defensively, the Shen didn't take teleport this game. And yes, there's arguments for, taking Knight, Shen top lane, you can make some plays happen, but it hasn't happened thus far, so I'll be critical of it.
Well, it might happen here. They missed the taunt, they missed the knock-up. There's just nothing more that they can do to Pafu, who still has the ultimate available. Melon. Now here comes Melon, looking for a big engage, going to force the flash out of the Shen. Dissipate has been stunned. The Veigar cage is down, trying to make sure they survive. Dissipate turning around with Kingfisher there. Now they've engaged onto this Kale after finding one kill. Kale having to flash over the wall. The flag and drag is here. However, Smurf does so much damage right now. Is going to pick up one. Doesn't have mana and is exhausted. Paufu trying to run away, but may have hung around a bit too long. Asian Demon low will survive the fight. Everybody A-okay. Overall, just a 1-for-1.
And you know what? That's okay if you're the side of Predictive or for the side of WCU, actually. Sorry, as you get a kill back into your pockets. Granted, it's onto the Soraka, who's already not worth too much gold. You get the gold reset and everything, but of note, Pafu stays alive for so long in that fight. The ultimate used on themselves, a great flash over the wall, and then they're able to return a little bit of damage. It's a scary situation for the side of WCU here, because they haven't really been able to punish this Kale, who will scale incredibly well into the later stages. And yes, you have a Jinx, but Kale arguably is able to do what Jinx does to one person to all 5 members if he can get those true damage waves onto multiple members at a time. They can even crit if you wanted to go the AD build, but looks like it's just going to be your general on-hit build.
I mean, sure, they do have a Jinx, but when you take a look at the composition of Predictive Gaming, this is a 4-threat composition, and they are all very strong. Dissipate, trying to make sure everybody's okay. The binding does go down. Is there going to be a further engagement here? They're all funneled, but it was a big Soraka silence preventing Melon from getting in there. Could have potentially saved the game, and I hate to say that at the 17-minute mark. Another binding down onto Dissipate, and now Veigar trying to push forward with the Predator. Doesn't have a whole lot of mana. And the Dragon will be started up here by the side of WCU. Does mean they're going to draw the aggro, and the entirety of Predictive is here. Veigar cage going down, trying to make sure nobody's able to get in. Mute is just going to walk up. Not going to be able to get it. Now here's a big fight. Huge Soul Shackles goes down. It's going to stun multiple members.
Oh my goodness.
Dissipate will fall. Ahata firing away. Nice flash there. Trying to run away. It's a 4v3 currently. Smurf, very healthy, does a lot of damage. Uses his ultimate, ends up flying backward. Does mean the rest of the Rams are going to be able to walk out of here. That said, Pafu on the top side, split pushing the game away, claiming a third turret up there. Has just about 1 million gold at this point. And still a 6,500 gold lead for the side of Predicted Gaming. And they're going to get a little bit more here. It's now up to 7,500.
This is just the level 12 Kale as well. It just didn't bother to teleport into that play. Trusted the team to be able to find enough damage onto some key members. And lo and behold, Pafu just able to push down that tower. And this Kale is just accelerated beyond belief at this point. Yes, the Dragon is secured by Dissipate and the side of WCU Rams. As, oh my goodness, stole away the Rift Herald.
Okay, from downtown, Ahata getting that one. And you know what?
Can anyone pick it up?
Objective bounty? Honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter. That's okay. That's okay. And you'll take the objective bounty gold. It's a nice global gold to the rest of the team. They are still a long ways away from bringing this one back. This is going to get really rough, and I think Please Don't Run It needs to start dealing some damage.
I think the main thing that I want to say as saving grace is that 6,000 gold in the grand scheme of things isn't a massive gold lead at 20 minutes specifically. There have been games even this weekend where the gold lead was 11, 12,000 gold at 20 minutes. So, you know, it is a gold lead. It is secure enough to win a lot of teams some games, but for the side of WCU, they have ways back into it. A lot of it does ride on the Jinx, but, you know, if Veigar's able to get to 2.5 items while sort of maintaining this rate of farm, if Jinx is able to continue doing work and they find a couple of nice fights for themselves with Pafu not showing up, eventually that can get punished. And it is still a ticking time bomb, though. Pafu being level 13 already at 20 minutes into this game is absolutely terrifying.
You did say that Predictive Gaming did have some difficulty holding on to leads. So this could be another one of those games. It's not over yet here for the Rams. So we have now crested toward the 20-minute mark. The Baron has spawned 14 kills to 5. And Mute coming from behind on the Veigar. Please don't run it. Will fall. Give another kill over to the Kale. That's number 2. Ahada could be in a little bit of trouble here. Here's an engagement from Melon. Rooted up was Killua, though. And Melon down to about half HP. The engagement from the Jarvan's a 3-man knockup, but the ultimate went down to try to keep Melon alive. The Black Shield as well, and Ahada just doesn't have the damage at this point in the game. They pick off the Jarvan as Predictive Gaming working as a unit here on the bot side of the map.
Yeah, Melon's just so beefy on this Rel. It's surprisingly tanky at one item, because even when you get that crash down, you get a big shield alongside with it. So able to stay alive, able to kite that one out, the locket shield as well, absolutely massive, and just not enough damage from the enemy team there. Ahada tried what they could with the damage, but it's a lot of single target damage here. You don't quite have your Infinity Edge complete yet. The Gale Force can get distracted sometimes in some of these plays, so I think that might have been what happened, and unfortunately they're unable to convert, even just going for 1-for-1 there, and they end up losing the Jarvan once again.
And it's so difficult, and I feel so bad for Ahada here, because this is a game where you would have loved to go Kraken Slayer because of the lack of damage on your team. But because of the heavy engage and everything you need to watch out for, you were kind of priced into going Gale Force.
Yeah, unfortunately, sort of forced into it, now fighting in their jungle.
Uh-oh, this could be a problem. Nice double taunt here out of Kingfisher, followed up with a Cataclysm. Mute able to flash out, will be able to land a Binding. Melon trying to find a way out, but gets knocked up. A nice flag and drag there from Dissipate. Please don't run it, flashing over the wall, looking for more here. The Binding is out, the Everfrost does not land. Killua waiting in the wings, in the bush, but is a little afraid of the Veigar and the Jarvan, and understandably so. And meanwhile, in the bot lane, the split pusher of Terror. That's the second inner turret that they've claimed. You know how much gold they give, Adam?
They give a little bit.
Only 600.
Yeah. It's a lot.
That's crazy.
That's a
That's
lot.
crazy. I mean, this Kale is now on 2.5 items and is on back, probably going to be able to finish the Riftmaker. And they're going to be staring down a 3-item Kale, who is the highest CS in the game and is getting dangerously close to a Flame Horizon.
It's just getting dangerously close to level 16. It's the Kassadin thing. It's Kassadin Kale. You know, those K champions and their scaling. You know, it just seems like, actually, thinking about it now, a lot of champions that have K as their first letter have, like, really interesting scaling properties. Like, Kha'Zix evolves, Kai'Sa evolves, you know, Kale.
Kayn transforms.
Yeah, Kayn transforms.
Kale goes from melee to ranged.
Kassadin hits level 16.
Kassadin became Emperor Zerg in the last patch.
Yeah, true. That was a interesting choice from them. not my favorite.
I agree.
Splash art
I was playing normals with a buddy. He goes, "What the hell is this champion?" And I was like, "So he's like, that's Kassadin." And I was like, "Oh, don't you mean Emperor Zerg?" And this one dude just couldn't handle it. He thought it was way too funny. And I'm like, "Listen, I might cast, but I'm not that funny. All right."
No, I think the biggest thing about some of the splash art updates, like Varus's, I liked when Varus got their splash art update, because before they just kind of looked kind of mad. Some of the other ones, though, have been a little bit wild. I mean, Kassadin's has been meh. Caitlyn's was nothing. I mean, you could barely tell the difference, apart from on draft law, she was just like super zoomed in. You know, she just got an extreme close-up, but what we are getting a close-up of is Baron, and you know, you've got a Kale, you can just shred this. Level 15 already.
Man, they are beating the crap out of the big purple worm. the Super Mega Death Rocket. The only thing that is dead is the Baron, and that is going over to the side of Predictive Gaming, who have done a pretty darn good job of holding onto this lead and expanding it. It's nearing 10k now. Looks like this mid turret will be knocked down by the side of the Rams, so good on them. Be able to know that it is time to take an objective when they have an opportunity, but they still have a long road ahead of them.
It is an extremely heavy slope to climb because you can see the gold lead has increased up to 8,500 gold. So Predictive Gaming just showing that, you know, if they're able to have as cohesive of an early game as they have had, they're just able to sit back on their haunches and, you know, farm up here. And realistically, Samira is not going to be a slouch in the late game. Neither is Graves or Kale.
Wait.
We've talked about Kale. There's great scaling for the side of Predictive Gaming here.
Wait. Predictive Gaming hasn't won a map so far?
No.
Let's go, Predictive Gaming! Listen, all right. I thought that maybe they're, 0-6. They had a couple 2-1s. No, this could be their first game win of the season.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. This has been.
I thought it was just their first match win. No, potentially. There's still a long way to go, and they still need to close out this game.
Yeah, it's
okay. I'm excited. They look really sharp today.
Oh, Shen. See ya.
Shen will be able to get out of there, but is forced to use the Stand United.
That's a long cooldown.
Yeah, it's not a short cooldown. It's not as long as it once was, and there's a whole lot of ability haste in the game, but that is still a important cooldown.
Yeah, not up for another 2 minutes.
Protection. Yeah, a little bit less protection for Ahata, which is not great. You really are putting all of your eggs in the Jinx basket, and the basket has lost a little bit of wicker.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the basket's been losing a lot of wicker because look at Kale, who's level 16 now, 26 minutes
bullying
in.
the small Yordle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that is a heck of a lot of damage. Top inhibitor is falling here, and Predictive Gaming, who would have thought they would be here, staring in the face of their first game win of the season here in the last week. They have decided to bring it. And a lot of these leagues, a lot of these teams, you get to the end of the week and you're not playing for anything, and you just kind of go, all right, we'll do something fun, or some teams don't even play out the games. But let me tell you, what's more fun than playing fun champions is actually winning games.
Yeah, this is absolutely massive for the side of Predictive Gaming if they're able to get a victory here, because it shows that they've been able to resolve some of the issues that they've had throughout the split in terms of just consistency. And if they're able to start effectively what is their gauntlet run now by saying, hey, we got a victory against WCU Rams, and we're going to be facing them again in the first game of the gauntlet. You just get that momentum going. You're able to build up some, ahead of steam, basically. You're able to push through and potentially find yourself some pretty nice victories as well. And, Predictive Gaming, they are familiar with the BTL, and they haven't played in a couple seasons. They've had a rough start to this one, but what better way to sort of get back up on your horse than by showing off right before playoffs.
Mute getting cut off here by Please Don't Run It and Kingfisher, but the big Kale has shown up and shown out. 1 kill is going to go to Mute. Give this one to Kale. Dissipate will fall. And now it is Asian Demon trying desperately to run away, but the collateral damage gets a kill. It's a 4-for-1. Mute the lone casualty. And just like that, Predictive Gaming further cementing their lead. Give them a soul as well. I think this is a game 1 victory for them.
Yeah, this is their first game victory, as you said, first map that they've been able to pick up, and it looks all but locked in at this point. Just need to see that Nexus explode here. The top lane inhibitor has just been putting so much pressure on. It's putting the side of WCU on a timer every time they want to take a fight, and just not able to convert around that dragon. And Pafu, just absolutely massive. 3-0-4, 250 CS here this game. Just been doing a great job of sitting in that side lane, putting a lot of pressure down. And unfortunately for Please Don't Run It, the Veigar pick that he was so fond of, was talking so much about on the cast, kind of gets punished a little bit here. The Graves worked out. We were skeptical of this, but it's worked out for them.
Yeah, and realistically speaking, a lot of it had to do with Smurf performing very strongly in the lane. Dissipate came through and got a kill down. Had a nice solid gank that forced out a flash as well. But ultimately, the Graves was undeterred, as the rest of Predictive Gaming is undeterred. They're going to take out the final non-Nexus turret and the last inhibitor as well. All three inhibitors down. Super minion double super minion waves, I should say, will be coming through shortly. And there's a binding onto the Vagar who could die. Dissipate is going to go in, but Smurf is now invulnerable. Pafu gets one. Pafu gets two. Give us third. Give another kill over to Killua. Killua picks up two as well. And Ahana is the Lone Ranger standing in the fountain. And I don't think they have the damage to be able to stop this one. Going to try to step out and will be taken down by the Kale. It'll be an ace. And it's very fitting that it goes to Pafu, the first kill of the game and the last kill of the game. And Predictive Gaming Nemesis, they take their first map of the season. They lead the series 1-0.
And what a great time for them to pick up their first map. It's incredible because we were cautious about them. We said this comp, they were able to get some leads, but they've been known to throw some leads. They keep pushing forward their leads. It's not as big as the leads yesterday. And I mean, I'm the biggest, I don't know, I'm the hypocrite here because I was like, you know what? I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And they're able to push through. They're able to find the victory. And honestly, what better time to do it than right before playoffs, as we've been saying. So WCU Rams, they've got to sort of put their thinking caps on a little bit here. Think about what really went wrong in that game because from draft, they looked poised to take that one. It looked like they had all of the tools necessary, but a couple of those picks end up really popping off. That Kale, as we mentioned, getting picked up B5, not having that counter as we picked up the Shen earlier really ended up paying off for the side of Predictive Gaming, who were just able to get a free lane for the Kale, and she was able to scale to infinity.
Man, she may have gone beyond infinity,
yes.
Honestly. Just so much damage, especially in that last fight. And just imagine if she had even more time to deal even more damage. A question that I want to pose to you is that typically when a team loses and then plays against the same team the next week, the losing team has an advantage. They get to scout a little bit better and they get to know what they want to come in with and what they can expect, what they lost to and how to counteract it. In this particular scenario, if Predictive were to get a strong 2-0 victory here, I don't think that the other side, the Rams, would get any advantage off of that. I feel like that's really disheartening and would be a huge downer going into the gauntlet.
It's going to be difficult for WCU Rams to sort of reassess, recharge after that game, and I think we'll find out how their mental is sitting after we see Game 2 draft in a lot of ways to see if they're able to sort of recoup something out of this series. But, it's still a little bit scary. Even if you end up taking this series 2-1 as WCU Rams, what you have to be cautious of, and the potential of Predictive Gaming. For the first time all split, they showed up and they had a great performance. And realistically, it's tough for me to put into words how surprising it was to see Predictive Gaming come through with that. And I would assume WCU Rams are feeling the exact same way.
Listen, man, Predictive Gaming is just hitting their late game power spike, much like that Kale. We will have to see if they will continue to scale or if they might falter into these potential next 2 games. We're going to be taking a very short break, but do not go anywhere because when we return, we'll be bringing you the draft of Game 2 between the Rams and Predictive Gaming Nemesis.